Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this roundtable on homeschooling while working. This is a topic that we get asked a lot in the group, and that is how can you homeschool while working? This can be whether you have two parents in the home, single parent in the home. There are a lot of questions regarding this, and we wanted to bring together a lot of people to talk about this topic from a bunch of different perspectives. We have Kimberly Bennett from the Homeschool Counseling Network, and it's only homeschooling. We have Melissa Muir from Melissa is Teaching, Jenny Monosmith from Farming Mom, Michelle Moody from The Homeschool Scientist, and Rebecca Stormdorfer from My Homeschool Village. Thank you guys for joining us today. So I want to get started with our first kind of conversation starter question is, how do you homeschool and work a day job away from home? So Kimberly, I would like you to start.
Okay, well, my situation is a little bit different. I do apologize for being a little bit loud where I am because sometimes working looks like a lot of different things. And today, my office happens to be in a cafe near where my son is in camp. So maybe I work for myself, so it's a little bit different. I don't have a day job a way where I work for someone else. I'm a licensed professional counselor, but I no longer participate in direct care. Instead, I run a nonprofit, or soon to be nonprofit, a free advocacy and resource website. So I think there's some flexibility there in how being self-employed, I can set my own hours and set my own schedule in terms of how I homeschool my son. So for me, it's flexibility that comes from self-employment.
Melissa, I would like to hear your answer to this question.
Yeah, I also don't work outside the home, but I've spoken. I have a YouTube channel where I also interview people, and we talk about things like this all the time because I think there are so many ways this can be done. One of the most creative things that I saw was a mom who was a manager at a restaurant, and she would work some nights during the week and then would work all day Saturday, sometimes Sunday. And so she would kind of manage it like that. Her husband would take the kids on the night that she happened to be working and then would, go have fun with them on Saturdays. So there's kind of this give and take, especially when you have two parents in the home and you're able to kind of shift those responsibilities. But I think that's probably key for wherever you're doing this from, is kind of drawing on the support wherever it's possible to find it.
Jenny, I would love to hear your take on this answer to this question, which is, how do you homeschool and work a day job away from home?
Yeah, similar to what Melissa said, it's really about building that support network and that structure and finding who you can rely on to do different aspects. So I work at a college part-time. I worked full-time and then left my position to be able to homeschool my kids. And now I work anywhere between 5 and 40 hours a week outside of the home, and sometimes inside, depending on where the semester falls. And so whenever I'm working away from home, the big thing is to, one, figure out who that support system is going to be. And two is to set clear goals for the kids for what, they need to complete when I'm not there. And that's everything from schoolwork to household chores to cleaning to, what are some options that they can do in free time, making sure that they and whoever's watching them is on the same page. The other main thing with working away from home is figuring out how to take care of meals, because if I'm not there to prep the meals, normally what I do is I plan 2 times a week. I'm not able to do it for the whole week all at once. So I do it 2 times a week so that the kids know what they're having for every mealtime. Things are made in advance. Usually I do like a really big meal on Sunday with lots of other meal prep and snacks and stuff. So they're good to go. And then Wednesday night I do almost the same thing again to get through the rest of the week. Yeah. But essentially when you're not home, you're pretty much homeschooling whenever you're not away. So that could be evenings, that could be the weekend, that could be early mornings before you go in, depending on what your work schedule looks like.
I think she hit on a really good point in that you're homeschooling whenever. And that was one thing I had to let go of, especially when I was working outside the home, was the expectations. I thought it would look a certain way, be a certain way, and
Is she frozen for everyone?
Froze.
Michelle, it seems like you may have frozen, so I'm
those
going
change.
to.
And you do
Oh,
get
are you back? Okay. Can you try again, Michelle? Think that you're unfrozen now.
I am so
Oh, it looks like you froze again. Okay. While you're figuring out the issues with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Rebecca. You just let me know in the private chat once you get things fixed.
And if she interrupts, that's okay. I have found I love what they're saying about finding your network. And it's hard, I think, when you don't have like mom or mother-in-law that can help with those types of things. I think we need to think, and as homeschoolers, we think outside the box. That's what we do. But you remember that, reaching out to other homeschool moms who work is a really good idea. There have been times in our lives where I would reach out to another homeschool mom who time-wise we were struggling. And so we would work deals. You watch the kids and homeschool them on Tuesday. I'll watch and homeschool the kids on Thursday. And you don't have to be working to do this. Like there were times I did that just to get a break. Like I get Tuesdays off and she's got the kids. And I think it's important that when you do that, you do tell your kids while you're there, her curriculum, her ideas is what you're following, unless you have like a deal where you send stuff, right? I have had problems where I had a child and they'd come to me and say, yeah, my mom said I don't have to do this today, so I don't need to do it. And my mom said, blah, 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 and I'll be like, yeah, but you're here now. So you're going to do what we're doing. So we've had issues where we've had to go, okay, moms, let's work this out. What's the deal? When they're at my house, are you sending them with stuff or am I in charge? But I think other homeschool moms are your best because even though I had mother, sometimes I had that help. My mom wasn't in love with homeschooling. She didn't think I necessarily should be doing it. So when she was in charge, it was interesting. Whereas another homeschool mom was like, I get what you're doing here and I'm going to help here. And so they were my favorite women to reach out to and make deals with and co-mom, co-homeschool with.
I love that. That's super creative. So, Michelle, I think that you've come back and I think that we're able to hear you again. Let's see. So it looks like your video is working again. So do you want to go ahead and share your thoughts on this question? I think you're muted.
it's my connection.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why. Of all days, it's going out today. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, we're talking about how do you homeschool while still working a job outside of the home?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've worked part-time and I worked mostly afternoons and evenings and weekends. So it would change sometimes from week to week what my hours would be. So it could be difficult to stay on a schedule. So I really had to be flexible. And I know somebody else really touched on this too. It's just communication. And everybody needs to know, hey, this is what's going on this week. I've got to go in early or I've got to work late. So I think communication was the key to my success on that. And also just having, like Jenny mentioned, having a schedule for dinner because my kids were younger and my husband was working. So I wanted to make sure there was a smooth transition between when I had to leave and he came home. And so just getting that meal prep done was really key.
So the next question that I have is, how do you homeschool while working from home? So from the different perspective, how are you able to focus and actually get work done while also being the primary parent at home and homeschooling? So Kimberly, I'd like to hear from you on that.
Well, I would say here definitely for us in our home, it is flexibility. Flexibility is key. I work in shifts or I work in stages. And as my son was younger, we've been homeschooling, we're starting our 6th year now. So he's growing in that independence and we've kind of nurtured that and promoted that independence. There's still times when there's certain courses where he might need me a little bit more. So that's when I'm not working. I'm not going to try and do both at the same time because I found that I just do half as well or do and not getting anything really accomplished. So if there's a time when he's actually going to need me on a lesson, the work is going to get put aside and I'm going to make him my focus during that time. But it means my schedule has to be flexible. I'm going to get up a little bit earlier in the morning, one, so that I can have a little bit of time to take care of me and a little bit to set the tone for my day. That's when I exercise, I can read some scripture, and then also enjoy my coffee and the quiet to set the tone for the day and get a little bit of work done. And I'm going to get him started on his lessons. We're going to start with the lessons that he's going to need me a little bit more on first so I can get those out of the way. And then we'll lead into more independent work. We also set the tone in the rules for he knows if mom's got this little sign hung on her door, that's not a time for you to come in the office and ask mom any questions. We have the 3 before me, and we have the 3 things that we set up that he knows he needs to do. For us, the 3 before me is okay, go back and look at a lesson that you've learned before, go back and look at some of the teaching videos that I've made on a YouTube playlist for you that have been kept there available for you to look at before. Or 3, go downstairs and I'll be honest to see if daddy has his headphones on. And if he doesn't have his headphones on, then you can go ask my co-teacher for a little bit of support. So I work in shifts and I work in stages. That means early in the morning. That means sometimes over a working lunch. That means in the afternoons, especially after our extracurricular activities have been taken care of. Sometimes that means weekends, depending on what I need to get done. So for me, it's just a very flexible schedule. Flexibility is key.
I love that, Kimberly. So Melissa, I'd like to hear your suggestions on how to be able to get schoolwork done and work done while working from
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, I would lean into that flexibility piece, but also for us, my husband also works from home. Work blocks are really important. I'm an online teacher, and Kimberly and I seem to have early mornings, similar early mornings. I get up very early, get a good workout in, get in scripture, drink that coffee in peace, and then start teaching for about 2.5 hours. And then we'll come downstairs around 8:30 or 9 in the morning. But that whole time, my husband has been doing math and kind of getting kids cycled through music and things that they're doing on the computer and stuff like that. So there's a definite flow to our day. And so I have that dedicated, cannot be disturbed moment. I should probably get a sign on my door. I just go, don't come in. But the afternoons are my kind of flexible work time. So if it's that kind of admin stuff on the computer where I can be interrupted, that's when I might have questions and hey, can you look at this math problem type thing. So there's a flexibility there. And then also I would say like fostering those executive function skills that we know they're going to need later on. Having kids figure out what is the flow of my day, what is expected of me during the day, and maybe that looks like a checklist for them. Maybe that looks like either virtual or a visual or an illustrated checklist. Just giving them those tools so that they can be responsible. They don't have to keep saying, what do I need to do? Or we don't have to say, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? So that's the type of thing that I think figuring out those skills and equipping with those skills that they're going to need much later on, not just in their homeschool days.
So Jenny, do you have any advice for homeschooling while working from home?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. One, I found over time that it's been really nice to have a dedicated space to do work and a dedicated space to do homeschool. And so because when they're both in the same place, which we have tried, there really was, I just wasn't able to concentrate, right? And it just didn't work out. Some people might make it work. We just couldn't. Another thing that I've seen is, when I was fully remote, you know, especially during COVID, my kids were really young and it was really challenging. And so the age of your kids really can change this quite a bit, you know. When you have really little kids, the time that you can do work from home might be more limited to like nap times and early mornings and evenings, and then try to get some of that other stuff done during the day. Now that my kids are a little bit older, we do a lot of more independent things. And so when I'm working from home and there's just not that one-on-one dedicated time, I make sure that I have things that they can do. So we have like a book basket where the books are constantly rotating and they can look at different books. We have, you know, a section in our library with like the DK encyclopedias, and, you know, that's one station they can do 30 minutes reading those. Or we, look at you know, I have some documentaries saved on YouTube and Curiosity Stream that I think that they might like. So having some of those projects that even though that so that if they get through their curriculum or whatever they're working on for that day, they need, you know, they need to do something else, they have those options. But what I found too with now that the kids are older, having some structured lesson plans. So like Good and the Beautiful comes to mind. We've done that where at this point my daughter's able to watch the lesson by herself and she's able to do, you know, it's sorted out so she can go through it and then we can follow up afterwards when I'm not working. That's worked well. So very different depending on what age your kids are at the time.
Michelle, I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, really, I wanted to expand on what Jenny said about the age of the children, because when I started working full time from home, we were starting to get into high school years. And so it was like, okay, how are we going to get all of those credits and all those state credits? And my kids wanted, you know, knew they were going to college. So we had to get, I had to get a little bit more outside help. And so I was fortunate to find somebody just talking to moms. You know, if you just go out and talk, it was funny when I first started homeschooling and working, it was, you know, the early 2000s, and not that many people homeschooled and worked. And so, you know, everyone would talk about these great days and all these things they were doing. And here I was struggling. I didn't want to say, oh, you know, I'm really struggling over here. But, you know, as the years went on and I started to talk more about it, and there were other moms homeschooling and working, I found out about a tutor. She took, you know, 5 or 6 high school students at a time, and she actually planned out their course of study based on what our state requirements were. So that was great. That took that load off of me. They met once a week. They covered 4 topics, and it was great because it made high school so much easier. And we also did online classes. So yeah, you know, I know a lot of people worry about high school as it is, but then you add high school and working and you think, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do it. But you can, you know, just, you know, look for the resources. There's so many out there now, especially since COVID, so many online resources. So I would really like to encourage moms that if you're going into high school, you know, yeah, it seems daunting. And it seems like you're just adding even more, but it can be done. You can work from home or, you know, work outside the home and homeschool and tackle high school.
Rebecca, I'd love to hear your take on this.
All right. Well, here's, I love what these women are saying. I really just want to reiterate, like, so cool. 2 things come to mind for me. One, let go of the Instagram mom. Like, stop your Pinterest boards, just quit. It will just cause stress. Let go of this idea of the perfect homeschool mom who's always canning and cooking everything from scratch and doing her gardening. And, you know, I did that the first 10 years they were little. That's what I did. Then I went to work and that all went away. And there was guilt that came with that. I had to let that go. And I had to learn to delegate. And now mom's job is part of the family project. Like, they're cooking, they're cleaning. I haven't cleaned a bathroom in years because my children are all assigned, right? It's now a family project. Mom's working and it requires your support to do that. We've got, now that they're older, my youngest is 12 out of 5 kids, right? So now that they're older, their computers are set up near mine so I can see them, but they can work and I work. Then we all work in the morning. We're all off in the afternoon. We all go hang out. We all go play. We all do our things. but it's not mom's job. Mom's career is not mom's. It's the families, because everybody benefits from it. And there are times they have to sacrifice for that, and I sacrifice for them, and it's a team effort. And I think as long as we're delegating a lot of the responsibilities we did have to our children, they feel part of that career. And we've even set goals for mom. When mom makes, gets this bonus, or when mom is able to do this, we're all going to go do whatever. And so it's been important for us to make sure that it's not mom working. It's that this is what we all do for the family's benefit. And that, I think, has been our biggest change in attitude, that has really been most helpful for us.
That's a good point, Rebecca. I think one of the things I really had to work at was is my kids not seeing my job as a negative thing. Mm-hmm. Like this is a positive thing. And I have a type of personality where I just really get into my job, and I want to do just great job, and I don't want to mess up, and that's just my personality type. And so I was at one point just sacrificing the fun stuff, going with our homeschool group just to meet up and hang out. And so really encouraging not to give up that fun stuff, and to make, like you said, Rebecca, to make it something that everyone's involved in some way. And so it may have meant a friend taking my kids to an outing, and me working, but I really had to work hard not to just cut everything off and to make it look like mom's job was a burden for the entire family. And I think you made an important point, Rebecca.
If I might add one more thing, I think the fun factor is super necessary, but I also would say, take your kids' interest and inject them into your work whenever possible, so that they can kind of be part of that celebration. I create a lot of materials that are printables or games that I use in my classes, but I also sell. And so it's really fun when I can say, hey, your superhero thing just sold again. Woohoo! Because we heard the cha-ching, right? And we can all celebrate, right? And so there's one of those things where you can kind of weave in their interest too. And then maybe, as is happening with my two oldest, they're like, hey, can we start selling stuff on Etsy? And I'm like, let's figure it out. Yeah. And so it might kind of bring in those extra, those skills, those life skills that we want them to have later on. And that can be part of homeschooling too.
One thing I would like to piggyback on is that as well is, as homeschoolers, one thing I love about us is we can make a class out of anything. And that is one thing that I have started doing with my son. He'll send me editing videos, and he's like, I don't know how to do that. And we don't allow him to show his face on camera, but he has learned how to film them, set up the concept, do the writing, do the editing, and then post. I'm like, that's a project. That's a project. You make a class out of it. It's all grist for the mill.
So I'm actually going to add something to this. I was raised in a family where my parents would take turns being the full-time parent and working out from the home. And they also started their own marketing agency. So they ended up both working from their office. And so they also set up a schoolroom in the break room. So that was kind of in our elementary to high school years. That was where we did a lot of our learning, which the benefit of that was that we actually got to have a lot of different, we got to see a lot of different skills that they were displaying. So we would be able to listen in on meetings that they were doing with clients. And we were able to kind of see the day-to-day process of building a website or doing a marketing plan. And so part of that was also figuring out what our interests were in regards to different marketing skills or just business skills in general. And as we, each of us became about 16, 17, we actually got to have an internship in the marketing agency. And so we got to kind of go through the different kind of departments, whether that was graphic design or copywriting. But we all started as receptionists, learning, how to answer the phone and how to schedule things. And I really feel like it shouldn't be understated to include your kids in your business, especially if you work from home, because they can do social media posts. If they know how to be able to use social media, they can do social media posts for you. If they enjoy writing, have them write the first draft of the blog post. And my mom said it's not to be understated, the first draft that they write when they're 12, 13, whatever, it's going to be terrible. It's not to get ahead. It's to help them to be able to have those skills, to learn how to be able to take constructive feedback. That's what you're actually teaching them. And so I just wanted to share that because that my experience is a little bit different than some other homeschoolers, but we call it kind of office schooling. So the next question that I have is, how do you include relatives, family members, and friends in homeschooling while working? Is this something you guys do, and how do you guys go about doing it? I think that Rebecca touched on this a little bit.
I'll jump in,
Okay,
I
Go
guess.
ahead, sorry.
I was like, does that mean you want me to talk about it, or
Yeah.
is that for Kimberly? Sorry.
Yeah. I'll mention again, my husband takes the math part, but we've had these little kind of forays where, I'll have a meeting, but I can set my kids up with a call with, an aunt who is a midwife, because we've got one of our kids who's really interested in medical things. And then a friend who's a physical therapist. And so we can talk with her, and another who's a research biologist. And so we can set a call up with her. And so there's these little, mini conversation field trips type things that we can kind of draw on our community, but also relying on people at home. I think, drawing on the adult who wants to teach whatever subject, who's up for it. But we've talked about meal planning. My mother-in-law, we live in kind of a community housing type situation where we all have our separate houses, but we're all close. So they go to her house for dinner on weeknights, which is hallelujah. I mean, it's just amazing. So we can come home from our sports practice and I can get straight to work or class, and they just go straight there, and I don't have to worry about cleaning up or cooking. And so whenever you've got those, I mean, just say yes. Say yes. It's not a bad thing to say yes to help when it's offered.
So Kimberly, I'd love to hear your take on this as well.
Well, our situation's a little bit different. We do not have family close to us out here in Texas, but when we go home and travel, because we are actually hybrid homeschoolers, so my son attends a university model school 2 days a week. So our situation is a little bit different. The university model school chooses all of our curriculum and sets the schedule, but we still are able to travel when everybody else is not traveling. That's the beauty of it, but we still have to get our work done. So when we travel and go home and visit family back out east, I had a time where I went home to the East Coast to help care for my mom, who was ill at the time. And my in-laws live in the same hometown, and they took over, which was beautiful, helping. And they're great with math. They're like, we don't understand how to do all these extra steps, but we can do it our way, which is fine. I'm like, that's how I learned math too. That's okay. So they were willing to jump in and help and do some reading and do the math and do whatever needed so that I could have time to go take care of my mom. I think it's just the same saying what piggybacking on what Melissa said. When help is offered, do not think that you have to come from home alone. You're not meant to. You have a village. Surround yourself with that support. Community is so essential. No one lives in isolation, and we were created for community. Here we have what we call family friends. Out here in Texas, we have a lot of homeschoolers right in our close neighborhood, and we take turns trading off, and they work from home as well. They're working homeschooling families as well. We trade off with field trips. We'll take turns going, oh, okay, on this Friday, we'll take all the boys somewhere, and on the next Friday, we'll take the boys somewhere. It gives us a chance to either work for that day or, in all honesty, a day date with our spouse, which is what we normally do. So depend on your community, and certainly surround yourself with family if you've got it that's willing to help, or family friends if you've got them that are willing to help. Just say yes.
Ginny, I would love to hear if you have any feedback on this question.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, to reiterate, build that support system and know who you can count on, and it's definitely important. And one thing that we don't have family nearby either, but one of my friends, this goes if you're working or not working. They have their grandparents. They do FaceTime with their grandparents 2 or 3 times a week for story time, and their kids are a little bit younger. But the grandparents absolutely love it. They love having that time, especially when they don't live close by, and they're able to call in, and it's a great way to build relationships. And it gives my friend, she has this hour that she can go and do something else during the time. So yeah.
Michelle, I would love to hear from you on this question.
Okay. Well, we had one relative who was close to us. It was grandmother, and she was a voice professor before she retired. So she would do things like, teach them piano, or they listen to classical music. It was all sort of informal, but things that I couldn't do with them, but were something different. I relied a lot on friends. I had a really good friend who would take my daughter to our co-op outings, or we did a history co-op together. We got together once every 2 weeks. So that really helped a lot because it took some planning off of me while I was trying to work. So that's pretty much what I did. I relied a lot on friends.
And Rebecca, you go ahead.
All right. So I always say most of the time we've homeschooled 20 years now. We did not have family nearby. So I had to create family. So I'm a big fan of like people who are not living near family. I'm like, join a church. I don't care if you believe, join a church, get in the community. That's where communities are built. And we had some experiences where I had 2 daughters who wanted to learn to sew, and I didn't know how to sew, and I had 2 little babies. And so there was a woman in our church, and I went to her and I said, I understand you sew. Would you be interested in teaching my daughter? She was in her 80s. She didn't have her grandchildren nearby. So she adopted my daughters. She taught them to sew every week for 2 years. And then I traded her. I mowed her lawn while I was there because she couldn't keep up her lawn anymore. So I would show up with a baby on my back, mow her lawn. My daughters got their sewing done, and they still sew. They're in the 20s now, and they're still great seamstresses. And they built this great relationship with this woman. Well, a few years later, we're at a new city. Same issue. I've got a son now. My husband's traveling a lot. He's starting to act up. He's like 12. He's acting up because dad's not around as much as he used to be. And I reached out to a man who was a neighbor, sweet guy. And I was like, he's got no grandpa. There's nobody nearby to help this boy. Will you take him? And he took him every Friday for months. And first he taught him woodworking. Then he took him to other people in the neighborhood and did service projects. So we'd pick him up, they'd go do service projects around the neighborhood, and they'd bring him home 2 hours every Friday for months. And it's been years and years, but they still have a cute little bond. And so you've got to reach out. And I really am a big fan of reaching out to the grandparents. They're lonely. They have skills. They have gifts. They're willing to volunteer. You can trade. You can, and I think you may not have family nearby, but that doesn't mean you can't create it. And those have been our favorite relationships as they look back. Those have been the biggest blessings to us.
Okay, so let's get to the question of how do you get the meals, the work, the cleaning, and the homeschooling done? At the end of the day, what are your tips for being able to make sure that everyone is fed, you are able to get your deadlines done, the schoolwork's done, and the house is clean? So, Kimberly, I'd like to hear from you on this.
I don't know that you really want to. I've lowered my standards a lot over the years, if you want me to be completely honest. We have one, and when he was born, I can remember I mopped a ridiculous amount of times when he was crawling because, he was preemie, so I thought any little bit of germ. Jazz hands. So I've lowered my standards a lot. That doesn't mean that my house looks like, a hoarder's mansion by any means. It just means that I've gotten pretty realistic. For one, it's a family effort. We all live here. I'm not the only one who wears underwear in the house, so I'm not going to be the only one who washes it and folds it. I don't care how you fold it. As long as it gets done and it gets put away. Everyone has to jump on board and do a part of it. My husband works full time, and he works outside the home and sometimes at home, but he still comes in and jumps in because it is a family effort. Meal planning is crucial. I do a lot of batch cooking and freezer cooking, and my husband will get out there and barbecue when we need to. And can I keep him barbecue that ahead of time and literally freeze it, and then pull out some chicken to throw on top of some meals as I need to. I have a rotation of a lot of the same things. We eat a lot of the same things over and over just because it's easy. My Instapot is my best friend. I keep it simple. And now that my son is 11, he's also learning how to cook. So, you know what? It's a life skill. And it's okay. He's in cooking camp right now this week. So bring those skills home, kiddo, and contribute to the family. Just kind of piggybacking on what Rebecca said earlier, and what Michelle said earlier. This is not just mom's job or not just dad's home. It's not just your parents' house. It's our house. And we all need to be a part of this team.
Melissa, I'd like to hear from you on this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were nodding quite vigorously there. I do not care about folding laundry. I don't fold my own laundry. It just gets thrown in a drawer. And so I will wash and dry everything, but it will get dumped on the couch that's behind me. And if there's a mountain, the kids know, make the mountain disappear, please.
Mhm.
And so maybe somebody wants to get a dime and they will get paid 10 cents to sort the clothes into 6 piles and then distribute them to the person's bed where they belong. That's our laundry system. And then as far as cooking, last summer, I guess we do like homeschool light in the summer. We still do like 1 page of math and like a little bit of reading and book study and stuff. But my 2 oldest daughters, who are now 11 and 9, started cooking lunch, and they would start with simple stuff, but now they can go like fish and sauces and like cool vegetables and stuff. And so let them. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be quesadillas and guac. Like that's fine. But as long as everybody's got some sort of veg and some sort of protein and some sort of carb, we're fine. And so I think that sort of thing, and setting up realistic age expectations. Our 4-year-old unloads the dishwasher. She can unload the whole dishwasher by herself, right? And there's things that like they're totally capable of doing it. Sweeping, taking turns. So depending on how many people are in your home, there are a lot of things that they can do. But I think it's just letting them try. It doesn't have to be done as efficiently as you would do it, but let it get done by somebody else.
Ginny, I'd like to hear from you on this one.
Definitely. I'd like to reiterate the same thing, work as a team and have everybody involved. And also, figure out what your priorities are for the week. There's always, you have to have food for the kids, and they have to, there's certain things, but what are your priorities? And they might change throughout week to week, and they might change season to season. And so, there might be times, like right now, we're hardly inside the house. We're outside all of the time. And so the housework is definitely a very low priority and low on the list. It doesn't happen all the time. And so thinking through, when you're doing your planning for the week, think through the things that you need to get done within the house, and make sure those happen, and everybody can figure out which one they want to tackle, and when it needs to be done. But yeah, definitely a team effort.
Rebecca, I'd like to hear from you on this one.
Oh, I think you just have to simplify everything you can. Number one, do we keep the house clean every day? No, I even have older kids who can do it. And there's a lot of nights we go to bed and we're like, oh, we'll do it in the morning. And there's a lot of times the dishes don't go undone for a week and it gets smelly before we touch them. But I've learned to use paper. We buy paper plates, paper everything, and we only use our dishes when we're out of paper. We've simplified things. I keep the freezer stocked full of things the kids can just heat up and eat themselves. Yes, I want them to eat healthy, but sometimes I just want them to eat. So, I just have to figure out, we've just simplified. How important is it really? Does it really matter? You really start to go, what really matters? Are we happy? Are we smiling? Are we getting along? Are we creating a contentious atmosphere because the house isn't clean? And I think we can get so caught up in what should be done that we can create this yucky atmosphere at home where kids don't want to be there. And I found if we just let go, they don't like the house a mess either. And I found that, but if we all do it together, I never clean alone. If I start cleaning, we all clean, we get it done in 30 minutes, we're done. But, before bed, we actually got it down to the point where I could say, hey, Dad's going to be home in 5 minutes. We could have the house spotless before he walked through that door. You just start to work as a team. You simplify everything you can, and then you let go what you can't handle. And it's okay to drop balls. You forgive yourself, you move on, and you stop like, oh, I can't do it. You have to give yourself grace.
Rebecca, you are my spirit animal.
I'm telling you, we all are living the same life.
So, as a perspective from a homeschool graduate, I can say that I remember distinctly when my parents first realized that I could do chores too. And, I might not have cleaned the dishes as good as they did, but it was a life skill that I was able to learn. And as we were all growing up, being able to figure out what was age appropriate and be able to learn those different skills, you can make your bed. at a much younger age than people think you can make your bed.
Mhm.
But yeah, putting away doing laundry, doing chores. They did say that if you're going to have your kids be the cooks, lower your expectations on how flavorful it's going to be. um, but now all of us are really good cooks because we were tired of eating plain chicken and rice and frozen veggies. And so we decided that we were going to figure out how to do different recipes. And now we all are like foodies and make all kinds of crazy stuff. And my mom's like, hey, can we have a potato and meat dinner, like a regular one, instead of one of these like Korean fancy things that you guys are making? So I think that it's important to include your family in the process of running the home. I think that it is super important for people to see that it is not mom's job to take care of every single need and whim that you have. That is something that I feel like I've seen just as the oldest, and being able to see that transition of my mom going from like, hey, wait a minute, these they're not like little kids anymore. I don't have to do every single thing for them. Um, and being able to have those life skills, and then talking to people that are my age and that maybe weren't homeschooled, and them being like, oh my gosh, trying to keep up on laundry or cleaning, and I don't know how to do any of it. And I'm just like, but what? You don't know how to cook food yet? They're like, oh yeah, I have to do takeout. It's so expensive, and things like that, because they don't know how to cook yet. And so I think that don't realize that it's not that you're not taking advantage of your kids, okay? You're giving them life skills because they're going to have to do these things. You had to learn them, and wouldn't you have preferred that when you were running a household that you already had all of these things down? You already knew what the schedule was going to be. That makes a huge difference. So let's talk about encouraging kids to work independently. I've heard a lot of people talk about and ask, how do you actually get them to do the work, do it correctly, and without stalling, complaining, and procrastinating? So, Kimberly.
Oh, she has to get. Oh,
Looks like
she's
she has
going.
to go. Yeah.
Bye, Kimberly.
Bye.
Connect later.
Okay, Melissa, I'd like to hear from you on this one then.
Sure. Yeah. I love a good Google Doc. Our kids all know how to get to their own Google Doc. So a lot of their writing happens in there. That way I don't have to, obviously the tinies are still writing in notebooks and stuff, but as they're, second, third grade, they're able to really start typing a lot more. And so I'm doing my work. Hey, you done? Great. Open up your doc. Let's do it together. I can go on my computer in their doc. I'm not over their shoulder. I'm not breathing down their neck. There's no like added anxiety there. Hey, see where my cursor is? That word. How can we work on that? So doing that little check-in, using tech to like put distance between you so that there is not this pressure, this added pressure. But also you're checking in. You're making sure that this is getting done well. I also love, Amelia, you must get tired of me talking about Nearpod, but I love Nearpod and the fact that it's a free tool. Anybody can use it. Hop on there. There are pre-made lessons. And so sometimes we'll be talking about something in their language arts book, talking about Bulgaria or whatever. And I'm like, I got nothing for you. I could pull something from YouTube, but actually here's a full lesson on Bulgaria from Nearpod. I'm going to take it. The link is in your doc. Open it up, check it out. We'll talk about it later, right? There's something like that you can grab lots of different resources and put them in a Google Doc and keep them organized there. But I think this also just has to do with putting these kind of stopgaps. And we talked about checklists, we talked about expectations, but stopgaps. Hey, we're at this point when you usually want to go do some game on the computer. Have you done it all yet? If not, the game doesn't happen, right? So getting to that kind of reward and saying, let's just check and make sure that everything else is done first. Those are just a few ideas, but I bet you guys have a lot more.
Jenny, I'd like to hear from you next.
Yeah, those are great. A couple of things that I have found is one, especially since my kids are older now, when I can include them in the planning of what's going to be happening throughout the week, they are much more, there's much less complaining and much less anything because they know what to expect and they played a role in deciding what was going to happen. And so they got to choose some of the things they were going to do, and they know and can anticipate that that's going to happen. And so I found that that's worked out really well. Obviously that wasn't, we couldn't do that when they were very little, but now it works out well. The other thing is switching it up from time to time. And so, you know, they have their curriculum that they're able to go through on their own. But when they need to do something else, so maybe it's like, you know, watching something online or using, you know, an educational app or even printables, you know, changing it up from week to week so they're not doing the same extra stuff or this what they might think my kids think is extra stuff. And that's actually how I started even creating printables in the beginning, is because, you know, they wanted to do more fun stuff and they wanted to do something, but they're, you know, I wasn't able at the time to put my hands on something. And so that's how I started creating things for them to do. And so, you know, having a lot of different options so that they're not doing the same types of activities every week, I have found that that's helped them to be more independent and also, you know, not say, oh, do we have to do this again?
Rebecca, I'd like to hear from you on this.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things that we kind of adopted over the years. Number one was boredom is not my problem. So if they're bored, I'll say you can pick something to do, or I will pick for you. It took once for me to pick them to do a job in the house, and they never were bored again. I've always said, you fight, you clean. You know, if you're going to fight or complain about what's going on, that's fine. And so when they were little, they figured out very quickly how to resolve their own conflicts, how to stop complaining, because they knew my ear was open. The second I heard a squabble, you both were doing dishes. You both were cleaning the bathroom together, you know? And so, and it started working when they would complain. They'd be in the middle of math. I hate math. I don't want to do that. Okay, we're going to take a break. You're going to go clean the bathroom. When you're done, you're going to come back and finish this page. And eventually they're like, well, if I complain, I have to clean the bathroom. Yes. So they stopped complaining, you know, and it was just little things like that. But I think it's important to put it in their lap. This is your job, your responsibility. So when they would come to me and say, hey, you know, I would say, when you say yes, I say yes. Mom, can I go play with my friend? Did you get this done? You know, did you get your list done? Well, no, I missed this. So what's your answer? No, I missed this. Right. And so I started to go, I'm not the bully. When you say, yes, I'm done, I say, yes, go play. And so it became their responsibility, and they stopped asking. They started coming to me and going, Mom, can I? Oh, I forgot mine. And then disappear, finish it up, come back, because they knew what the answer was before they came to me. And that took years to develop. But now, I mean, so many things I don't mess with anymore. And my adult children the other day were joking about mom style. And my 20-year-old who's married with a baby of her own, and my older teen, and they turned to me and they're like, do you remember when mom would be like, if you fight, you clean? And so we would just go hide in a room and play and hide from mom. And there, and I said, yeah, I remember that. Like, yeah, we just decided we'd just play without you. And I'm like, and I won. And they were like high-fiving each other, so thinking that they had pulled one over on me. And I'm thinking, yeah, good job, guys. So those are some things that's worked for us.
Michelle, I would love to hear from you on this one about encouraging kids to work independently.
Okay. Well, I was fortunate. My youngest really, that was just her nature. So she made it pretty easy. But with both of my kids, especially as they got older, middle school, high school, we would, you know, get together either Sunday or Monday and talk about the week. What have you got scheduled? What have you, you know, what's due? What's coming up? You know, we would look at, and some of the curriculum we had would, you know, break it out day by day. So they knew we had a quarterly test or a chapter test or whatever. And, you know, at first I would sort of talk about, you know, how do you prep for that? You know, 2 days ahead, 5 days ahead, whatever. And so we sort of started out that way, where we would sort of have these little mini conferences at the beginning of the week. Definitely got them planners, whether even if it was just a notebook. And I'm so glad I did. because once they got into college, that was really key. In fact, when we walked into my son's dorm room, there was a planner right there because I told him, let me get you a planner before you go. No, and there was a planner right there on his desk. So, regardless of what they do after graduation, just being good stewards of their time. So, whatever your planning looks like, we had a wipe off calendar in our kitchen, and everything got put on there. And if you had something you wanted to do, some activity, and I was working at that point. I was working 2 jobs, a full time and part time. If it wasn't on that calendar, please don't come to me. 5 hours ahead of time to tell me. But I just really tried to focus on getting them to plan. The other thing was, I really, as I got older, I think getting them to work independently is also tied into their interest level. And there's some things that they had to do like math and history, but we really started pursuing their interests. And my son was into robotics and was teaching himself AutoCAD, and he really liked that. And so he ended up teaching himself 2 things of AutoCAD, and they ended up being an elective. So I started to focus on some of their interests that might lead to something after graduation. And it was amazing how much they just took it and ran with it. My daughter at first thought she wanted to go into drama, in college. And so she would read, Shakespeare plays for fun, and, talk about them, and would find productions all around our state, and we'd go see them. And, it was just a way for them to delve into what they were interested in. And they just took ownership of their education. That's how a lot of their electives, like I said, their electives got done.
I love this. And I have to say, Rebecca, that you have some great tips that I'm definitely going to try to remember and use. Because my mom did if you tell me you're bored, you have to go clean.
Yeah.
But the fighting and then they have to clean together, brilliant. That would have solved so many problems.
Well, my evil side would actually encourage their fighting. So, there were days where I had a lot to do, and I would tell my kids, guys, the house is a mess. I would love for you to fight. We'll show you, So it did become a game. The problem is my house was cleaner when they were bickering all the time. And now that they get along really well, my house is a mess.
Oh, that's too funny. So I really appreciate you guys getting on here. I know that we're getting close to the end of this, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to share a little bit about what you guys do and what you do for work. You're all homeschool moms, so I think that's apt. I would love to hear about your different businesses, and if you'd like to share a resource for people to check out, a website link, I'll go ahead and share some of those links in the comments for everybody to check out. But Melissa, I would love to hear from you about Melissa is Teaching.
Sure. So I'm an online teacher, an independent online teacher. So I try not to teach on platforms. That way I get to take home more of the money that I make while teaching. I do help other homeschool moms and just people in general, not necessarily moms, to get started in that kind of diversified online teaching business, because not all of us have a bunch of hours to dedicate to teaching. So I only teach about 2 hours a day, and the rest of it is all passive or semi-passive income, including lots of resources and printables. So you can head to melissasteaching.com, and there is a whole page of freebies, including a workbook for people who are interested in getting started in that kind of diversified online teaching world when you're working from home and homeschooling. This is a good next step for you.
Jenny, I'd like to hear from you next. Tell us about
Yeah, so Farming Mom got started because like I mentioned, I wasn't able to find exactly what I wanted for my kids to use at the time. And so I started creating printables, specifically math printables for my daughter, and then also holiday printables. And so because we were doing a lot of things and we wanted to incorporate the holidays in a fun way. And so if you go to farmingmom.com, I have a whole page full of freebies from math and reading and holiday stuff on there, mostly for younger kids. So it's usually about the pre-K to second grade level.
Rebecca, I'd love to hear from you about my homeschool village.
Okay, my homeschool village is a community of homeschool moms where it's the community itself is free. You can go in and we're just bonding and we're coaching and we're helping each other out. Then we also have a social network for children. And so our kids are meeting up. There's live book clubs. We have a Minecraft education group where the kids meet up and play Minecraft together, led by a homeschool mom. We've got book clubs for mom and for children, different books, of course. And so we just have multiple programs, and we've got a journalism class coming up for kids. They're going to create their own magazine done by homeschool children. Anyway, so it's just this way to get our children to interact online, to make friends online while being overseen by homeschool moms so that they're perfectly safe and we don't have any junk coming in. And it's $25 a month per child, and it's at myhomeschoolvillage.com.
Michelle, I would love to hear about the homeschool scientist.
Okay, well, I own the Homeschool Scientist, and I create math and science printables. It's something that I love doing. Long time ago, I used to teach kindergarten and sort of made a full circle after homeschooling and got back to doing that through the website. And so I have all kinds of free printables there and all kinds of activities. And I also do social media work and website work, email marketing work for other website owners.
And I'm going to talk about Kimberly's website since she had to hop off early. So the Homeschool Counseling Network is a free advocacy and resource website that is bridging the gap between homeschooling families and coaching, education, mental health, and therapy professionals equipped to support them on their home education journey. I'm going to go ahead and put the link there, and you also can get all the links to all these fabulous ladies in the comments as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. This has been a great roundtable. We've shared a lot of good information, and I'm looking forward to sharing this everywhere with everyone.